From the Quick Links panel, let's select Add Facilities and Program page. That'll take us to the Composer panel where we can create a new page. We'll add the page name, and this one will be the Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers page. The URL slug loads automatically. Next, we'll need to assign this page its own category. So you can assign multiple categories if you want, but in this case, we only want to assign the service members because that's appropriate for BOSS. Scrolling down, let's always leave page template as it is. We'll always leave it as program because that's the right format for this particular kind of page. With body content, I never add the body content here, although you could if you wanted to, but I like to design my pages in context and add things as I go along so I can see what I'm doing, and you might too. So let's skip down to these colored blocks. If you didn't like what you were doing and you wanted to discard this draft and send it to the trash, then you could just hit the red button, discard draft. Or if you wanted to save this page as a draft and come back to it later, you could save and exit and then come back to it later by clicking the double page icon. And remember, there was the draft section there. This page is nowhere near ready to be published, so we don't want to click Publish Page yet. So let's go ahead and click Edit Mode. And that takes us to a panel where actually we're able to start building the page. The title of the page has already been loaded for us, and now what we need to do is start adding some content. So let's click the plus symbol because we need to add new content, and we'll do that by adding a new content block. Now with the Recplex Auto Skills Center, if we remember that one, the hours of operation and the contact information went at the top of the page, and then an image and some text. So we'll follow that same format. So the hours of operation and contact information is all the way down at the bottom. So let me scroll all the way down, and now I see it, hours of operation contacts. Let me click and drag that item into place, and when the green line thickens, I can let go of the mouse. And that opens a template where I can now add my hours of operation. The custom heading has some information here that is by default hours of operation, but if you wanted to change that line, you could. You can click some buttons here that are kind of self-explanatory: hide hours, open 24 hours. Notice text is interesting, and it's completely optional. You don't have to use this. So if you had like a swimming pool closure or a water main was closing down one of your facilities, you might come back into that facility and program page and add some notice text. In this case, I think I want to add a message for the BOSS members. So my notice text will be BOSS meeting Monday at 6 p.m. With times, we always write the times in Associated Press style. In this case, 6 space P dot M dot, always Associated Press style. Try and keep that in mind. All right, now we're ready to add our times. So I chose BOSS because I only want to add Monday and leave all the other times blank just to save us some time. So let's just fill in the times for the day when this person is going to be in the office on Monday and come in from Monday from 8 o'clock a.m. Not too early in the morning because they've got to do their PT and those kinds of things. So until 4, what do you think, 4:30? All right, we'll do it 4:30 p.m. All right, Monday from 8 o'clock a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Well, that's a long day, and maybe we want to add an additional message maybe for a lunch break. So let's add a range. That gives us an additional block that we can fill in for Monday. And instead of adding times, because sometimes that gets a little bit complicated, you also have the option to be able to add just text. So here I'll just say lunch 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. All right, good enough. Now for the other days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on, I'm not going to add those in because it would just take up too much time. And if we don't add hours to any of the days that are listed here, then what we'll get is a default message closed on those days. And you'll see that in just a moment. So going down past Sunday, we're just going to default to closed on any of those days. Let's go ahead and add a custom day though, because this is pretty interesting and something that you might use from time to time. Adding a custom day, let's click that and say that we wanted to add the times for a training holiday. So we could type in any message, whether it was federal holiday, training holiday, Korean holiday, whatever suits you. And we can add that message, and training holidays are usually closed, so let's go ahead and leave those times off too, and it'll default the message to closed. All right, ready to scroll down? All right, let's add some contact information. For our address, I usually like to start off the first address with a building number, and this is totally up to you how you want to handle it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as we get the information in and people can read it and know where they're supposed to go, then that's good enough for us. All right, so Armistead Street on Fort Bragg. I'm using a real address here. So address line number 1 is usually the building number, and address line number 2 would probably be maybe the street address. Let's get these extra digits in there. Now, there's a nuance with the Enterprise Web, and that is about the Google Maps icon. Let me click over to this RecPlex Auto Skills contact information that we saw before. What you'll notice is that we have the ability to add a Google Map icon, and that's pretty convenient. Some garrisons will allow it and other ones don't. I'm going to show you how to make that happen in just a minute. You'll also notice that the telephone number has a +1 in front of it, and when it's formatted like that, you'll notice that when I hover over it, it is a live link. Now, on a cell phone, this would be a tap dial, so if somebody just touched this telephone number from their smartphone, it would dial automatically. Oh, we'll show you how to do all of that. But about that Google Map icon, to get the Google Map icon to appear, we have to add the street address one more time in Installation Street. Don't ask me why, it's just one of the nuances with the Enterprise Web. And I found that out by mistake when I was noodling around one day and trying to figure out why things were working the way they were for me. And so that is what I found out. So I'm sharing that little bit of knowledge with you. So if you want the Google Map icon to appear, then type in the street address an extra time in Installation Street. The installation is Fort Bragg. And the zip code, if you want the Google Map icon, you always have to add the zip code. Now, if you don't want the Google Map, then just don't add the zip code and don't add that extra Installation Street. Easy as that. With the telephone number, remember we have to add that +1. And you can see I have a cheat sheet here to help save us some time with typing. With the civilian telephone number, if the +1 is there, then it will be a tap dial activated link. So if you are unsure about your formatting when you're doing your telephone numbers, you can hover over this I, and you'll notice that a little pop-up appears that gives you some clues about how to format your telephone numbers. So that might be handy for you. Hope so. All right. Now the DSN numbers, sometimes we forget to add the DSN numbers, but they're tremendously important, especially for garrisons or people who are overseas, and especially those people who want to phone our facilities here in the United States. So always try and remember to add the military DSN numbers, because they are, for our community members, they're tremendously important. The contact email is interesting. Let me click back over to the RecPlex Auto Skills. I want to show you something. Our website complies with Army PII standards, personally identifiable information. So we comply with those standards. And when we add an email us address, or rather the email address to a program manager into that block that I'm about to work with in just a second when we click back to our other screen, then that person's email address is not going to appear to the public. It will only appear as a block. It'll be masked with this email us. And so what happens when we add this field, this contact email, and I'm just going to add my email address. If you wanted to add additional email addresses, you would hit the semicolon and continue on with the additional email addresses if you wanted to. But when you add this contact email information, then that is going to activate that email us button. The personal email address will always be masked. It complies with Army standards, as I said before. So that's just something good to keep in mind, that you can add that with confidence. And when somebody clicks that email us button, it will open a form and they can send an email directly to whomever it is that's in this contact email. Sometimes it's just the marketing manager who wants to handle it all. It's up to you. You can add your ICE, Wi-Fi, handicap buttons are there. Let's go ahead and click and add this block and see what it looks like. It should look good. And it does. So you can see that our message here, our optional message, boss meeting Monday at 6 p.m. is there. Our Google Map icon is activated. We have Monday, we have the time that the person's in the office, and that special message that we added for the lunch hour. You can also see that training holidays is here, and anywhere we did not add times is defaulting to the word closed. All right, good information. There's one thing though that you may have, I'll bet you've noticed this already. The telephone number is not active. Remember, it's supposed to be a link. Well, that is another resident in Nuanceville in the enterprise web. There aren't a lot of tricks or nuances in this system, but this is just one of them. If you see something that you don't expect, like this telephone number is not showing the active link, well, if you see something like that, just go up and just save the page that you're working on. You could either publish it or save it, whatever is appropriate. And when we save and lock in that page, then you'll see that that link now is active. All right, very good. So we can continue to add some content. Underneath the hours of operation block on a facility and program page, it's always good to add an image. So let's do that. We click the plus symbol and our panel slides open to be able to add an image. Let me scroll up on that page so I can bring something in. I'm going to click the image content block and I'm going to click and drag it into place. Click and drag, drop it into place, and here I can choose an image. This will take me directly to the file manager. And I have an image that I've selected already and loaded for the BOSS program. I could either search for it up in the search, or I think I know where it is. I think it's on the next page. So there it is. So I could just advance with the previous next buttons. Let me choose this one, BOSS Training. There's my image. It loads the thumbnail. I say, yes, that's the one I want. I like it, and it loads for us. All right, let's save and save often with our website pages. Sometimes, people will interrupt us or the phone rings or you have to get up and do something. So always save your pages, save them often when you're working in the web. Just a good practice, save and saved often. All right, now let's add some content. Let's add some information and we'll add a new content block by clicking the plus symbol, scrolling down. We'll add a new content block just for text. We'll click and drag that into place. And we're going to be doing quite a few different things here. We're going to add text. We're going to do a little bit of formatting. We're going to add some links. We'll also add a table. So this is going to take a couple of minutes, but not too long. I'll keep it as short as I can because I know your time is valuable and I don't want to keep you too long here. But this is the longest session for facilities and programs. All right, I've copied and pasted some content. So I'm copying, pasting it in. Now, what I know here from this system, having worked in it, is that when you add a content block right down directly underneath an image, you have to add an extra space. Now, I could add a full space if I wanted to, or I could add a half carriage return. Look at the difference. Look at the T. This is a full space. I'm hitting the enter button. That's a very deep space. I'm going to backspace, or now look down at your keyboard. Now, if you were holding down the shift key and then you press the enter key, that's on a PC keyboard, holding down shift and then hitting the enter button, now look up at your screen. That's a half carriage return. And you can see that the space is less deep than a full carriage return. That's a handy trick that you can use again and again and again for when you just need just a little bit of space between lines of text or paragraphs or anything on your website pages. Just a little bit of extra space is that half carriage return. Shift and enter will do the trick. That's a power user trick for you. And now, since I can't think of a better heading, let me just go ahead and make a heading within my paragraph by clicking bold in that first line. If you can't think of anything of value, work your way around it. So now we have a kind of a sort of a cheater heading here, and our content is loaded. I know that I've got a little bit of space that's going to load between the image and the content block. That's going pretty good. Now let's add a link, because we have a phrase here that says we're adjacent to the Java Cafe. Now imagine if somebody is reading this page and they say, "What? Java Cafe? I love coffee. I wonder if it's open. I want to get down there right now and get some coffee." So wouldn't it be nice if they could just click this click a link on your page and then click over to that page to check the menu, the hours of operation, and where that is. So that's what we're going to do, is to create an internal link to one of our pages. So let's backspace over the word Java Cafe, and I'm going to make this page a little bit bigger so you can see that icon. I hope you can see it. And we'll click the little link. All right, you can see I'm going to click the link for a link. All right, clicking the link to create a link that gives us, the link panel. Now this is where we can choose the page that we want, and we'll be choosing it from the sitemap because it is a page, it's not an image. Remember, images and linked documents are in the server or the file manager. In this case, we'll choose sitemap. When we go to sitemap, that takes us to our choices. We'll click open the folder, and I'll open up programs because I need to find my Java Cafe program. And there it is, Java Cafe. I'll click it once, and you can see that the URL loads automatically. Now with internal pages, you may want to keep your visitors on your browser window. For instance, the one up here that I'm circling. And I notice for myself when I'm flicking around in a website and different screens are opening all the time, different browser windows are opening depending on where I'm hopping around in the website, I get really confused. I don't know about you, so use your judgment. But typically for internal links, you kind of want to keep somebody on your own website. So we have a command here, target, and if you are working with an internal page, make sure that your target is set on not set, and that means that page will open to the same browser window that you were starting from. We're going to be exploring this a little bit more in a minute when we add a PDF link. But for now, we have this link page the way we want it, so let's go ahead and click OK. All right, so we've added an internal link, and now we want to add another item to this page because I want to show you how to add a link to a document. Now documents, get stored in the file manager, whether it's a PDF, sometimes we can add Excels, Word documents, different kinds of links like that. So to create a linked document, imagine if this were a restaurant page. It's going to make absolutely no sense what I'm about to do in the context in relation to BOSS. But say that this was a restaurant page and we wanted to add a menu. So we'll type the word menu, and that is the word that we're going to use as our link to be able to attach to a downloadable menu. So we'll do the same thing that we were doing before, because a link is a link is a link is a link, and we'll backspace over the word menu. We'll go back up to our link button and we'll click link, and that takes us to kind of the same place, but kind of, but not really. Remember, we were in sitemap before. That's what we had selected for our internal page. And in this case, we want to choose Browse Server, and that will take us to the sitemap where we can choose the page that we want. Now, I could search for it in the search if I wanted to, but I don't really want to because I know where it is. Let's see, I think it's on page 3. There it is. And I've got a Java menu PDF down here. So let me go ahead and pick that one. If I click it once, it loads automatically. Now, in this case, people like to load, they like to download PDFs and sort of muse over them and read them. And so perhaps with PDFs, you would want to have your PDF open in a brand new browser window. I want to show you how to do that. The way to do it is to go to the target, click open target, and remember if target is not set, it's going to open in the same browser window. So let's go ahead and select a new window. We'll select new window blank, click that. We've made our selection, and we'll click OK. All right, so now what we have is an internal link, and we have a PDF downloadable type of link here. The last thing that we want to do in this block is to create a table. Before I create a table, I want to show you an example of a really nice looking table. Let me get rid of that extra page because I want to show you the back I want to clear some screen space. So I want to show you Fort Lee has got a beautiful table that has been done correctly. The thing to remember with tables is that even though we're looking at this in a horizontal view format where we see the table laid out like this, item price is the title row of our table. There's a lot of T's in what I just said. That's the title row of our table is the top row. And then we have the corresponding items underneath. We're seeing this in a horizontal view, but what would happen if this table were collapsed down and somebody was viewing it on a mobile phone screen? Well, let's take a look. Now, this is a good example of the definition of responsive behavior, and that's how websites reformat themselves automatically, if they're done right, and ours is, to be able to be viewed on a mobile phone screen. So look at this table. Since it was done correctly, and I'm going to show you how to do it, you'll notice that this table has reformatted itself instead of being in a horizontal where we had item price on the same row. Now you can see that they're stacking one on top of each other and that the table is also colorizing itself. What will happen when somebody is viewing this on a mobile phone screen is that the text will always be in a readable size font. So what we have is a successful table, and I want to show you how to create one. Now, if you had a table in a Word document that you wanted to just copy and paste over, chances are it would not work, because in a table, the top row is the one that contains the mechanisms that control the responsive behavior. All right, back to our screen, and we're going to create just a very quick table because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I know that this Facilities and Programs page is taking up quite a bit of time. The rest of the pages, when we add an event and a promo, won't. But in this case, we want to add a table, so we'll click the little grid icon that could look like a calendar, but we know it's a table. So we'll add a table, and that gives us the table properties. I'm just going to add a very quick table with a couple of items, a hamburger and a cheeseburger. Now remember, we have to have an additional row for that top header row where we had the item price, and so I'm just going to say we need 3 rows and 2 columns. The rest of this information, we can just leave it as it is, because even if you've changed it, it's defaulted in the content management system, and it would not change the size of your table. So let's just say that all we have to worry about here are the rows and the columns. So 3 rows, 2 columns. I'm going to hit OK. And that gives me a kind of a bare bones looking grid, but it's good enough for us right now. So we'll type in the top row, which is going to be our standard row, ITEM, and we're typing it in caps and lowercase because PRICE, because in web style writing, if you type things in uppercase, it really does look like you're shouting at people, and it looks rude, so we don't do that. Now this top row is already pre-formatted, so I don't need to add any bold to that. Now I can go ahead and just add my content information. So I'm going to say hamburger, HAMBURGER, and then the price will be, let's see, they're usually about what, $6.50? Okay, $6.50 for a hamburger. And then we'll say cheeseburger. All right, cheeseburgers, we usually add an extra 50 cents. It's been a while since I haven't been on the restaurant program, but I think that that's the way it is. $7 for our, oops, gosh, yikes. That slash is right next to the dot on the keyboard. All right, so now one of the web rules that we follow is that not to add anything that we don't absolutely need. And I typed in this 7.00 on purpose just to show you that we don't really need the 00. And what we try to do on our websites is be as succinct as possible and as clean as we possibly can. So if there's something that's not needed, you can just very happily get rid of it, and you can see that the price is just going to be as understandable. It's not going to look like 700 anymore. That would be terrible. All right, so we do our prices like that. Oh, now what if we wanted to add a row? How would we do that? Well, to do that, we would right-click inside any one of the rows that we're on. I've got my cursor at the end of the cheeseburger. If I right-click, this is just like Word, then you can add a row. So let's add a row after. Insert a row after. You can delete rows, do other things like that. We'll say chicken sandwich. We'll say $7 for a chicken sandwich, 7 point. We don't need the 00. And what we have here is the beginning of a pretty good page. So there's one other thing that we're going to want to do, and we always want to save the content block. That just saves the content block. It doesn't save the page. And remember, we like to save and save often, so let's go ahead and save the changes to this page. Now we want to do one other thing, because do you remember on the RecPlex Auto Skills page how there were those nice accordions? So let's add an accordion to this page too. All right, here's how we do it. What we see though on this page is that we have a pretty good thing going. We've got the table that we just created, and it's colorized itself nicely. And what I do know about this table, since I do them all the time, is that it is going to reformat itself properly to a cell phone type of narrow format. So you can see item prices stacking. All right, very good. Very, very good. Very important to do those tables correctly. It's also very important to check your content just like what we did. Even if you're fairly sure that you've done it correctly, it's always a good idea to check it by squishing your screen down into that narrow format. Now let's do one last thing to this page, and we will add an accordion. So to add any content, we do the same thing that we've been doing all along. We add a plus symbol, or rather we click the plus symbol, and that gives us the opportunity to add a new content block. In this case, we're going to be adding an accordion. We'll start an accordion. And by the way, after you've added an accordion, because I know that I'm going to forget to tell you this, after you've added an accordion and the content block, even if you have a whole row of them, click and drag this end accordion underneath the whole row of all of your accordions, just as a good practice measure. So let's go ahead and add a new accordion. We'll start an accordion. We'll click that block over, click, drag it into place. The green line thickens. We let go of the mouse, and we can add our start accordion table. Now I'm going to get my little cheat sheet page up and find some content here. We're going to add a content block, or rather we're going to add an accordion for the Boss Computer Lounge. And we'll add that. Now watch what happens. You can see that we get the title bar for our accordion. Now we have the problem of adding content to that. And well, how do we do that? Well, content is. It's the same no matter where you go in the enterprise web. So we'll just use a regular content block. We'll click and we'll drag it right directly underneath that blue bar. And you'll notice that it has a kind of an overlap or an underlap, depending on how you look at it. So we'll just drop that into place, and we get the same kind of content block that we got before. And here you can do all kinds of things. You could add YouTube videos, just all kinds of things that you might want to do. So I've got some content. I'm going to add it. All right, just like we did before. Do a little bit of pretty formatting. Always make it pretty, right? Yep. Now in this case also, in accordions too, you can add images. So I'm going to choose from this panel. I'm going to choose the little picture that looks like a sun and some mountains. In this case, it takes me to a different kind of image property box where I'm still able to get to the file manager. So I'll click Browse Server. Just wanted to show you that because sometimes the panels look a little bit different depending on where you are and what you're doing. And I see a picture that I loaded previously called Computer Lounge. Let me load that. Now at least the thumbnail comes up properly. So let's go ahead and add. We'll click OK. Looks good. Let's save that block. All right, we're finished with our page. The last thing that we want to do is go ahead and publish the page. Once you publish the page, then it will start to appear in the sitemap. All right, shall we check it? See what we did? All right, very good. All right, hours of operation, that all looks good. Google Maps, telephone number is good. Email us is good. Yep. Check. Looking good. How about our accordion? Let's see what happens with the accordion. Yeah, that looks good too. But what about the Java Cafe link? Let's see how that looks. Now, if we click the Java Cafe, hopefully it will open in the same browser window. Remember that target that we set? Right, that works. Great. There's the facility page for Java Cafe. Well, that works. Great. Now the menu, we wanted it to load in a new window. So let's pick menu. And we can see that that menu does load as a downloadable PDF. And somebody can just download that and pin it on their bulletin board and run out to the Java Cafe and get a cup of coffee. All right, success. So what we have is a pretty nice looking facility and program page, and that is how we create one.